We're just recording.
Is recorded. I'm probably not going to edit this video. I've been
Okay.
having a ton of um, trouble editing. So
Sure.
with that, I'm going to do a little advertising right here. This video is brought to you by the like, comment, subscribe, and share buttons. Feel free to do so, and the show will begin. The show.
Ta-da!
That's it. So that way I don't have to figure out how to edit that into.
Sure.
I've been spending so much time just editing these videos. My wife is so
I
mad
do
at me.
that all day.
Yeah.
Good bunch.
You do a lot of editing?
Yeah, a lot of everything. A lot of commercials and things like
Okay.
that.
Because that's the
This
big
is the first. I haven't been interviewed. I'm always interviewing.
yeah, yeah. Well, you were one of the first persons that I thought about to want to be on the show because I'm kind of a staple here in the local community anyways. And there's been a lot that's happened in media wise here locally
Yeah.
in the last couple of years, and I was like, I'd like to get your input on it, and um, but we can get into that later. I was talking about how my wife, uh, when I said I wanted to do a podcast, I was like, I'm just going to start a podcast. And she gets so mad at me because every day I tell her I'm going to do something new. I
Right.
told her yesterday I was going to write a book, and the day before that, I was like, I'm going to start a water bottling company. I just always say stuff like that, and she never knows if I'm going to do
You're
it.
serious.
And then I get so far into a project, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to do it. She's like,
Okay.
what are you talking about? And then it falls on her lap to do whatever, the paperwork and the books and everything, and she hates it. So she was mad at me when I said I was going to do the podcast because I was like, all you do is press record and send it out there.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta do.
That's all you got to do.
And right now I have like 3 recordings that I can't even send out because I don't even know how to edit them. It's just like so
Oh,
tedious
yeah.
with all the editing and
Just don't make mistakes. Then you don't
yeah,
have to edit.
yeah. Well, see, that's why I did the advertisement and the first the people to subscribe to the
Yeah.
channel. Uh, yeah, but this is our second official podcast. We do have a I call it podcast zero that hasn't been aired yet, and that's with my brother. And I don't even because we did one earlier when we were waiting for Philip.
Right.
You guys saw that one. And I didn't know if he was going to show up or not because he was running a little bit late. So my brother is here. We have a pretty interesting story to tell. We grew up on an Indian reservation in Arizona,
Hmm.
and so we started that one. But then he showed up, so I paused it, and then we finished that episode with him. And I'm trying to figure out how to mash the two videos together.
Oh,
And
there's tools out there.
yeah, yeah. So it's just a learning process. I just like learning a little bit more and more. When I first decided to do it, it was just me having a phone, and I was making a joke that there's a water bottle here. What?
One of the bottles of water that you started.
This is no, yeah. This is my first phone stand in my first video that I was talking
Oh,
about.
nice. Okay.
But now I got the
Yeah.
whatever it is, little flash dealies to kind of distract from all the mess that's in here. So you've been in here before. You've been in this building before.
Yeah, it's been a long time though. It was Patrick's back then.
Yeah, that's what I get a lot.
And then when I was a kid, because I grew up in Osage as a kid,
Okay.
back in the 70s, came here with A&W was here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
I'm
I'm a
gonna
lifer.
I really like this building. I'm hoping to keep it, but we're probably gonna have to sell it. And then, of course, it's more than likely whoever's gonna buy it is gonna,
Sure.
get rid of it. And
Here in Holland.
I hate to see it. I
Bring
really,
A&W back.
yeah, yeah, something. There's ways to make money off of this building, but you gotta do so much renovations and stuff before you start seeing anything back. So I wanted to ask before I forgot. It was on the tip of my tongue when I had you sign the release form that I was going to ask you this question because it's kind of a sensitive subject. And if you want to steer clear away from it, that's fine. But do you care to get at all into the Kanye West situation? Did you hear his music video that just came out?
No,
You didn't hear it?
because I don't. I'm into rock these
Yeah.
days and
Did you hear?
classic
Did you
rock.
hear? Did you hear about it?
No, I
Okay.
didn't hear it. I know he's got some things going on a legal standpoint, but
It's basically, and this will tie into what the main reason I wanted to talk to you about is like the censorship of putting music out there,
hmm
you know. Um, when it started in the 80s or 90s or whenever it was, and they came out with that black label parental
Yep.
advisory, it seemed like it was more of liberals who were like, hey, just put the music out there. And it was
Mhm.
more conservatives like, no, we need this label, we need to let people know that there's dangerous stuff in this music and it can be harmful if consumed by minors or
Sure.
whatever it was.
Sure.
But now it's more of a,
So censorship.
yeah, censorship. But now it seems like more conservatives are saying, hey, let's just have freedom of speech, let people say what they want to say. And it seems like liberals are like, let's, they call it the cancel culture that happened, that's
Sure.
been going on. So Kanye West put out a video about Heil Hitler, and uh, that's what I'm not going to get into the lyrics. A little bit vulgar, I don't want to share that kind of stuff. But the idea is that he's so frustrated with what's going on in his life that I can't speak to his situation, but he feels like a lot of it is dealing with um, people of Jewish heritage in the industry. So he's like fighting back that way. It's kind of, and so many people are saying, he's Nazi, put him in jail and stuff like that. And if you look that video up, you can't find it on YouTube. You can't find it. It's like completely banned and erased. So I think it's illegal in Germany. Actually, they made the song illegal, and so, but all it is, when I heard it, I was like, I can understand, but it's also him. The emotions that I got from him in that song was like he's just trying to fight for it. He has nothing. That's what I hear in those lyrics, and
Right.
he's got other songs like that.
He doesn't care because, it's kind of like a well-known artist. It doesn't make any difference when they were popular, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You know, at least for the years that I've been in radio anyway, if they could just narrate something and it's a hit,
Yeah,
and stuff. And Kanye probably, I don't know, he obviously wants attention, and I think that has
yeah,
a lot to do with it,
yeah,
and there's always going to be an audience for that, a
yeah.
lot of that stuff, whether they're curious or not or
Mhm.
whatever. But I just think that you have to protect the young people of this country, and probably all over the place.
Yeah.
But even Spotify,
Hmm.
you can make sure that your kid on the account is only listening to, uh, edited music
Yeah.
and
Okay.
stuff. Um, the FCC, when it comes to radio anyway, the FCC, they put the laws down on us. We cannot have any of that on.
Okay.
That's why on the radio, you'll always hear edits. You won't hear any explicit.
Do they come up with a new set of rules every year? Because of what you can hear on the radio now is far different from what they would have allowed
Yeah,
20 years ago.
it is a little bit more generous now.
Is that just like,
But they still have, you can't say the F bomb, you
mm,
can't say, there is certain language that like dams
yeah,
or hells
yeah,
and say, but it's when you cross that line of where, because here's the deal, here's the secret about the FCC.
okay,
You're not going to get in trouble unless you hear complaints.
yeah, okay,
That's if radio stations or TV stations, even
yeah,
if they get complaint calls, that's when the FCC looks at it.
okay.
Otherwise, yeah. Do you think sometimes they just get by with it? They probably do. But
Almost like any other part of the car.
yeah,
You just,
I mean, there's no
yeah,
difference between hip hop rap that's hardcore versus heavy
mhm,
death metal type stuff.
yeah, yeah,
It's whatever. Just with maybe death metal, you can't
yeah,
understand it. But, I understand the lyrics.
okay,
I don't know. It's for what he's doing. I think it's just more of attention. If his life's going downhill, I'm going to just throw this out here, and because I'm Kanye West,
mhm,
I could probably send it.
yeah,
Because that's what it's about. You
yeah,
got to be able to sell.
yeah, and I think that's fair. And as far as being able to access it, like if an adult wants to listen to that video, like I said, in Germany it's illegal.
Hmm.
So it's like how far can you?
I think every government in every country out there is trying to just protect.
Yeah.
their people. It's kind of like food.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard the latest, but everything that RFK is trying to do to get all of these like dyes and chemicals out of our food.
Yeah.
We allow so much in our food. You go to different countries like the UK
Yeah.
and Canada even, they don't even allow. So one could say, okay, well, there's just, we get by with a lot
Yeah.
in this country.
Speaking about food, switching topics a little bit, I should have had like a notepad and everything. I always get D's and F's in my classes because I think I'm just gonna do it all last minute and so I don't have all my all the things I want. But you brought up food. I did want to talk to you about the Plan Z diet. You spoke a lot about it. I don't know if you still promote it. You don't.
Yeah, it was what? You're talking about 2010.
Uh,
So it's 15 years.
Well,
ago.
was it that long ago? I thought it was
Yeah,
more. I thought it was more recent.
yeah. No, I remember.
Oh, but you were pretty heavy on it.
Yeah, I lost well, let's see, I lost about 220 pounds.
Yeah,
Took a few years
yeah,
to get there.
mhm,
Gained some weight back, but you know, I mean, life happens and
yeah,
things changed. I moved radio stations,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff, through time. But other than that, yeah, I mean, today I would think a lot of people, well, I know keto is extremely
Mhm.
popular. I mean, I think like a Whole Foods, I have a buddy of mine that's on Whole Foods. He lost 100 pounds
Okay.
just by eating meat and vegetables and fruit. That's
So
it.
so now
Nothing
that yeah,
processed.
so now that you're not advertising for it, would you recommend that to people?
Actually, I just heard that she quit the business. She stopped the
Really?
business.
Okay. So
Yeah, because nowadays, and the reason why, because I mean, she sent out a news release about it,
okay.
and she said I can't compete with the $25 shots, like
Oh, the
Ozempic
Olympics?
and
Oh,
all that
okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
So,
Interesting.
and so she says, because I think if you're on a diet, it takes time
Yeah.
to do all. But
Well, with her diet, you lose weight. And I did the diet, and I lost 50 pounds. And then the part that where I messed up with is it's like a 6-week program. You lose all that, and then you kind of adjust into how you're going. You
like
can
a
eat,
reboot thing.
yeah, and then you can eat more food. You're allowed to eat more foods. And I just kind of went free for all.
Yeah.
I ate a little bit more, and then I gained all the weight back plus some. And it's like,
The problem is processed food in this country.
yeah,
And it's so good.
yeah, it's
And
so
I mean,
good.
because we're Americans. We love to eat things that taste good.
Yeah.
And usually and that's why I can tell you, I mean, there's a lot of scientists out there that know how to put what chemical into
Mhm.
what product to make it taste good.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I learned a lot when I uh, was talking to Zola about all this stuff. And yeah, I was 4 and a quarter in 2010. And by
Yeah.
2014, I was down to 190.
Okay.
I've gained about 100 pounds back,
Yeah.
lost another 30.
Yeah.
So now we're back on different things. But
Yeah.
I switched to basically Whole Foods,
Okay.
a lot of carnivore.
Yeah. I'm at 300 pounds right now, and this is the biggest I've ever been. And it's like I got to do something. I'm just grasping for straws right now, and I'm on this like I would call it a high calorie diet, but it's low fat and then with working out.
Mm.
So I did do it for a couple of weeks and saw a lot of progress, but then I got off the bad way and gained it all back. So I'm on it again, drinking my protein shakes. And my problem is when I'm working out, I don't know what it is, like this elbow hurts so bad, and it goes away when I stop working out. But as soon as I start working out, push-ups, barbells, dumbbells, whatever,
Yeah.
the pain in the elbow, like it stiffens up, and it's just a shooting pain. It's like, man, I can't. I can work through it, or I need to figure out how to. I think there's some exercises like rehab. Is that what they call it? Rehab. Um, when you have an injury and you go to some specialists and they give you specific exercises to pinpoint.
My whole thought on exercise is I think it's important to be active.
Yeah.
I don't know about exercise, but it's important to be active
Mhm.
doing something. But I think that you have to. I mean, I used to say this when I sold that diet on the radio all the time, that I said, you need to lose weight to want to exercise.
Yeah, yeah,
It's hard to just lose weight
yeah,
from
yeah,
exercise. Because you know what? It's you're gonna get it's like hopping on that treadmill.
yeah,
How many people that are watching or listening right now actually have a treadmill
right.
that's probably used more for hanging up clothes?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
It's like if I only had a treadmill, then you get the treadmill and you don't just utilize it.
but if you get on a regime I would suggest like high protein and
Mm,
low carb is
yeah,
what I would suggest. But I those carbs are tasty.
yeah,
I know
yeah,
they're so good, but you just got to try to limit. I think everybody has, um, a mediocre where if they eat too much, they can probably go the other way, or just everybody, limitations.
yeah,
I think if you can just, you know, hang on to those a little bit. And
yeah.
so, in other words, eat. If you like ice cream, okay,
Not,
so eat it
yeah,
once every other week,
yeah,
not every day.
yeah. Or don't finish the bucket maybe like
Yeah,
that, and
yeah,
then go on to some pizza, right? Some chicken nuggets, maybe.
or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah. So when you were with that other company, I don't know if you're restricted to talk about it because you're working with
oh
a
yeah,
new company
because
right
they
now.
just got sold again.
Yeah. Oh, I heard that.
Yeah,
I didn't hear about that.
yeah. It was with Alpha Media.
So
Uh,
Alpha Media was the first one, and you
yeah,
were with Alpha Media,
right.
and they've had, I listen to AM radio a lot.
Mhm.
So Tim Fleming in the morning, and
Mhm.
then I also listen to that jazz guy who was blind, and
Oh,
I just
Joel,
Joel. Yep, I
mhm.
just learned that he
He
passed away,
passed away not too long
and I
ago.
was really sad because I was really excited. Like
Great kid,
I want to
great
interview
kid.
Joel. Just he got me so excited about jazz music. It's
Yeah,
about blues, all that old stuff,
yeah.
and I looked him up, and it's like, oh, this guy's just a kid.
He's
And
just a kid.
yeah,
He's blind, and he knew everything.
yeah, just crazy
Everything about
information.
music, I swear. And his big one was the big band era, and
Yeah,
he knew a lot of the big bands, and
yeah,
also 50s, 60s music,
yeah.
and stuff. And yeah, I worked with him for quite a few years
Mhm.
before I left.
Yeah.
So I left in 2016,
Okay.
and I was on 106 over there
Yeah.
for 31 years. I was there, and then moved on. The pull-off media gave me the chance to come over and do what I wanted, and that
Okay.
was classic rock.
Yeah.
And I grew up with that. My favorite decade was the 70s.
Yeah. Is that the Fox station?
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Okay.
yep.
Is that KFOX?
No,
Or
it's KLKK, but it's
KLKK?
103.7 the Fox.
The Fox. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then
I've
when
been there
they
almost 10 years now,
is
9
it
years.
okay? Okay. So time goes by pretty
Yeah,
fast.
it
Yeah.
has been really fast. But having a good time,
Yeah.
I just retired from my wedding business that I had for 42 years.
Yeah.
I did
DJ.
DJing
Yeah.
on the side, as my side hustle. Everybody's gonna have a side hustle.
How'd you get into radio?
Well, believe it or not, I was 15,
Okay.
and we had a local radio station in Osage. I was going to school there, and I was a farm kid,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be on the radio so bad, so I actually knocked on the door of KOSG back then,
Hmm.
and it was right in town in Osage.
In those days.
And they played, it was middle of the road. They were mellow.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I just wanted to work in radio. And they gave me the chance.
Yeah.
And I was there for about a year, I think, till I was 16. And then I was let go. They thought I was too creative. So I
Really?
had like a 16-year-old kid,
Yeah.
So then I actually, a lot of people don't know this, but I worked part-time for KLSS back in 70, or no, it's 1980. I'm
Okay.
sorry,
Yeah.
1980. My senior year, actually my senior year.
Yeah.
And so I basically knocked on the door. That's how I got
Yeah.
in. And then I got a part-time position, and it was all I had intended to go to broadcasting school the whole time.
Okay.
Nowadays they'll tell you you probably don't even need to do that. You just got to be in the right place at the right
Yeah.
time. Now it's definitely a different career than back then.
Okay.
But I had a ton of fun in the 80s and
Yeah.
the 90s. I went to broadcasting school in Minneapolis in 1981 when I graduated. and then from high school,
Yeah.
and then I was only there for a year. My first career job, then I did mornings in Wyoming. I
Okay.
went to Sheridan, Wyoming. It was a Bighorn Mountains,
Yeah.
and did mornings there. That was my first full-time gig.
Okay.
Then that took me, I was there for about 3.5 years. Took me to Grand Island, Nebraska, and I worked afternoons at KRGI in Grand Island. And then I got the call to come here to
Yeah.
KLSS in 85. And I moved here in May of 85, and I was there at 106 till, well, 31 years,
Okay.
till 2016. And then
Yeah.
I left to go to the Fox,
Yeah.
so
So when you first started, and they said that let you go because you're doing too creative, what does that mean? Being too
that's a
creative?
good question.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what they
You know
said.
what?
That's what they said though, huh? It was
Well, I
okay.
remember the guy. I won't say his name, but I remember the guy. He showed up at a broadcast, at a remote that I did
Yeah.
in the early '90s, and he came up to me. He says, "And I guess I let you go too early, huh?" And I
Mm.
go, "Yeah." Him and I had some nice words
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
stuff, and he apologized, and I
Okay.
said, "Well, hey, it's
Yeah.
no problem." I said, "I'm glad I left. I'm here now." So
It's got to be like a really competitive field, isn't it? Broadcasting or radio? Because you only have
well,
three stations and
yeah, it's competitive as far as media goes, yeah, because we're always going up against TV. Going against nowadays we're going against podcast.
yeah.
How about that? What
Yeah.
we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so it's a different deal now. It's a different medium. I'm glad I'm on my, I've got 45 years of radio,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna be, I don't know, I'm gonna be 62
Hmm.
this summer.
Yeah.
And how long will I go? I don't know. I talk for a living, so I don't know
Yeah.
how long is long enough, and so
You got a really good voice where I'm sure you know that, been told that a bunch of times. Did you start out that way when you were a kid?
no, I
You
sound
didn't,
like
nobody were giving you compliments on
you know, no, everybody
voice casting?
they always ask me, how did you come up with that voice? I go, well, no, I just did.
Okay.
It wasn't anything that I tried to do. I
I
just
was,
want to make sure that if do I sound exactly
yeah.
like I sound on the air?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing.
Yep. And then, so my problem right now, and I think I've had this for a long time and I've never just dealt with it because it's, I don't do any type of media or anything like
Mhm.
that. But my voice, I've noticed this when I'm in crowds or something, it doesn't carry at all.
Oh,
'Cause I'll be in a crowd and I'll be yelling at people and they just won't hear me. It's like what? And then somebody come up to me like and stand right next to me and like, hey, could you pass the milk? And I'm like, oh yeah, let's get the milk.
sure.
It's like my voice just doesn't carry. I don't know. I should take lessons or something. And then I was on AI earlier, my first time ever doing AI,
Mhm.
and I was talking to this robot they thought I was a girl and they kept answering me like I was a girl. And I was like, do I have a feminine? What's going on here? But I didn't know if there was something like instructions that I needed to make my voice project a little bit more, just so that it's more clear. Yeah,
Projection is definitely a big thing. I don't know. I mean, in broadcasting school, we kind of learned, how to talk, I
yeah.
guess.
Okay.
And I still use some of that yet
So
today,
there
but
is skill and technique to it.
yeah,
Okay.
speak from the lungs.
Yeah.
No, not the throat.
Right.
No,
I think I'm picking up on that now as I'm trying to get my voice to, because
just keep going.
I know you can hear me, but it's a challenge to get to go through the microphone and then enter the speaker,
Yeah.
and then so I know that I can't use my normal voice. I have to learn how to speak differently so that it carries through and you can pick up
You
on the
know,
speaker.
I'll be honest, and let's face it, I mean, with everybody podcasting anymore,
Yeah.
I mean, because everybody wants to be a star, everybody wants to be an influencer,
Yeah.
and I get all that, but I think that voice, yes, it helps,
Hmm.
but your personality
Yeah.
is what really,
Yeah.
I think people
I
they want to
I
hear.
don't have a personality either.
Well,
I don't
yeah. So I mean, it takes time.
yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know what I worked on. I just, I was, we call it making tapes. We made tapes, audition tapes that we
Okay.
sent out. back in the day,
Yeah.
70s, 80s, 90s even. Spec tapes is what they were called. And they, they showcased you, your personality, your voice, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's how I guess I got every job, that was,
And then going from job to job, is that circumstance or is that them getting tired of you or
no,
yeah.
because other than part-time as a kid,
Yeah.
I never been fired.
Okay.
I actually left on my own,
Any
and
situation.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I always wanted to go a little bit bigger. I've had the chance to go back in the 90s. I had a chance to go to Minneapolis and
Yeah.
work at CCO,
Okay.
and which was big.
Yeah.
That's big. But my family, went through a divorce in the 90s,
Mm.
and so I had a couple of boys, so I didn't want to leave them,
Yeah.
and so I stuck it out here, and had a good time.
Yeah, definitely. When you go to different locations like Mason City, Minneapolis, and you turn on the different radios, you kind of compare my DJ, my hometown DJ, this DJ over here. Are you guys still called DJs? What's that
Yeah,
term? DJ?
radio
Okay.
personalities.
Okay, yeah, DJ. I'm gonna say
On
DJs.
paper, I
Yeah,
write down radio
radio
personalities.
personalities. Yeah. It's like there's there's a lot of talent there. You can tell like one person is I don't he's not as good as the person that I listen to. He's not as quick-witted, interesting,
See,
fun.
that's what's fun though.
Yeah, yeah,
It's very
yeah,
diverse.
yeah,
There's a reason why, a gal is listened to more than this DJ and
yeah,
more than, it's all about personality.
yeah.
That's what it is.
They have a lot of those we call them hype men. You
Yeah,
know what I'm talking about? Yes.
yeah.
I'm
To
not
do
even
commercials and that.
yeah, yeah, and that's all
I've done a
stuff to do.
ton of night commercials.
Oh, I bet, yeah. And so with that, when Alpha Media was there, and was it a takeover? Did everybody see it coming? Was it out of the blue when
Oh, of
that?
what happened a year ago, you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Was that just last year? I thought
That
a few
was, it
years
was
ago.
last, I want to say it was last March.
Okay,
Um,
so it was pretty
it
recent.
was,
It was going
March
on.
or April, something
Yeah,
like that. It was maybe it was last May. I
yeah,
don't know, but so what happened, if you don't know the story, was, everything that, I shouldn't say not all Alpha,
mhm,
um, but I would say all the small markets,
mhm,
like Mason City,
yeah,
they let all of their programming department go. All the DJs
mhm,
got let go,
yeah,
except they would keep one. I'm still good friends with Joe Malone, who's over there. He's still over there, yeah, but he does all the background stuff,
okay,
you know. And but I mean, I had a little bit of fear in me, which is why I wanted to. We got when we got bought by Alpha. Everybody kind of was in shock that I was leaving, but I uh, basically had a I had a journey planned, and
well, I
I
thought
just didn't
yeah,
want to. I I didn't want to hang on for another big company to
yeah,
take over.
yeah,
Because I already went through three of those while I was there,
yeah,
and when you got to, with the radio station I work for now, Co-op Media, they're locally owned. I mean, I can call up the owner,
mhm,
I can text him, I can email him, I can all of
yeah,
that, and I feel like I was somebody. Well, my thought back then was I had fear that, okay, well, we're just going to all get canned one day.
yeah,
And, well, my fear came true, but for my friends, because I was good friends with all of them
yeah,
over there and stuff. And I think all of us in radio, we all try to, the competitive stuff is pretty much over. We're just all one big family,
yeah,
broadcast family. We
yeah,
all care about each other.
mhm,
I still, care about who's ever over there yet.
yeah,
And, and then we ended up hiring Bob Fisher for the news.
yeah, yeah,
We ended up hiring Jared Allen that was over there
okay,
for our Forest City
yeah,
affiliate.
yeah.
And then also Britt, who was on the country station over there. She is now on Kiss Country.
Oh, that's her name, Britt.
So yeah,
Okay,
Britt, yeah,
okay,
yeah, she does. She helps out Jay Brooks in the morning and stuff. So we were able to, take some key people. We couldn't really do anything with Tim. I'm sure we would have, uh, would have had a place for him, but he was
Yeah,
retirement age.
sure.
So I mean, I don't know. I feel bad. I feel bad because none of these guys got to say goodbye.
Yeah,
None of these
that really is too
DJs
bad.
did. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It's like you
I
said, it's such like a strong
respect all.
local community that was really upset and saddened that,
Mm.
their favorite personalities are gone. And yeah, so is there I haven't even checked into it. Is there an AM station at all anymore?
Well, I think they still have KTLO over there. That's AM, but I don't. The programming's all changed.
So, okay,
So it's nothing local.
okay, okay. So it's just still
I mean,
like another,
they do cut away for local spot breaks and things like that. But other than that, it's all being done,
yeah,
somewhere, at a main location.
yeah,
But, anyway, but I'm happy to be where I'm at now.
yeah.
Be here for, hopefully the remainder of my. I want to get 50 years of radio. I'm at 45 right
Okay,
now,
yeah,
and if I can do 50, I'll be 67 then,
yeah,
retirement age.
yeah, yeah. The
I have a feeling I'm going to be doing it yet till I'm 70 or so.
well, I mean,
We'll see.
yeah,
But things will change. Obviously, I'm not going to probably work as much.
yeah. One thing I want to ask you, you brought this up on when you were on the radio. This was years ago. I think you were a little upset at the time that people were,
You've been listening that long?
yeah, yeah,
Does. Okay.
people were complaining that you have the same songs over and over again, especially with one, was it 106? It
Yeah.
was one, it's the same pop songs over. It's like, there's good songs from the last 20 years. You can throw, like you were saying, I think the argument was if the number one um, playlist, whether it's Spotify or XM radio, the number one, I think XM station is top
Top
20
20.
and it just
And
plays,
that's all they play.
and that's the number one. So if
And
you're
they were
talking
number one
about,
they hate and
yeah,
the number one they love,
yeah.
you know.
So
So it's, you know what?
are you guys forced to play those music because it sells so much better when you,
Well, it's a mass appeal,
yeah,
I mean, let's face it, everybody, and this is probably why, the likes of Spotify and all these platforms that
mm,
you can, your iTunes and all that stuff can actually, because you're only listening to what you want,
yeah,
you know, and what people want. And I understand that, but we're a business
yeah,
trying to make money. So you have to, and you come up with a format. And then like with classic rock now, I probably play up to almost 1,000 songs on probably a 75 to 80% rotation.
okay,
And then there's another probably 3,000 songs
yeah.
that get played a little bit lighter rotation.
I don't think people realize you can go through 1,000 songs pretty easily.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah,
not everybody's listening all at the
you're
same
right,
time.
right,
And you
yeah,
hope that they are,
yeah.
but it,
It,
you
it,
know,
it may seem like it's just on repeat, but it's like 1,000 songs, that's quite a bit, but
well, it's because they know the song.
yeah, yeah,
And that's why, oh, this one again,
yeah,
but we're all, our nature as a human being is to, here's a little bit of a interesting, uh, this fact,
okay,
that if you, would survey people, they remember music the most between 14 and 21.
yeah,
That's the music that
yeah.
you probably
That's the
will
best music.
listen to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Now,
everybody.
now
Yeah,
some get tired of it,
uh-huh,
granted,
yeah,
but it's what they know.
yeah.
It's what they know.
And I've even realized that like music that I hated back then, now I think like Backstreet Boys and and all those out, but
And
that was the
sync and
music
all
that
that.
came out when I was of that age, and yeah, I'll gladly listen to that music, even though I just because
Right.
it was of my age of that time period. So that's a very
Because you're
good
growing up,
factor.
you're
Yeah,
learning about life, being a teenager,
yeah,
but you're so into music,
yeah,
more so
that's true.
than like I said though, there's some things like, I mean, if we were a rocker, for example, in the 80s,
Mhm.
we were into the Poison, Bon Jovi's, Def Leppards, and all that. Some of those people maybe switch to country, but they always appreciate
Yeah,
those songs,
yeah,
So there's some crossover. I think some country people actually have, you know, a base where they were into rock back in the 80s,
Yeah.
growing up or whatever, and then they just change their lifestyle
Yeah.
changes, their, you know.
It can be, a good song can be medicinal,
Hmm.
whether you're
Yeah.
depressed or whether you're excited or whether you're um, amped up,
Yep.
it's just that vibration or sound waves, whatever it does, it changes how a person, it
Hmm.
corresponds with them, and it just means so much to have that connection with that sound and whatever your temperament is at that
Right.
at that time. So,
See, back in the 70s, I was a huge Kiss fan.
mhm,
Still am.
yeah,
I've been to probably 50 Kiss concerts.
really,
Yeah.
I've never been to a concert.
You never have?
No,
Oh,
I'm wondering. I've been to
and somebody take him to the concert. Yeah.
yeah, I've been to Band Fest, so I guess that kind of counted as
Okay.
not Band Fest. I'm sorry, Bash on the Farm.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So that counts, I guess. But I've never been to like an event where I'm wanting to go to the Skillet concert coming up here in
Yeah.
Mason City. Will you be going to that?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's not your cup of
No, I
tea.
like Skillet.
Okay.
I do.
Yeah.
And I am a Christian,
Yeah.
and I do appreciate that music. But my summer gets busy, even though I don't have weddings in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is good. But I'm going camping this summer. This
Yeah.
is the
That's a
first
good
time
camping summer,
I've
huh?
been able to go camping.
Are you gonna go fishing or just kind of
Well, I'm
sit
gonna
still? Yeah.
barbecue. I'm a griller.
Yeah.
I'm a smoker. I like to smoke meat and
I wonder
all that stuff.
how much more popular camping is here compared to other places, or is it just popular everywhere?
I think so. I think COVID really got people out of the camping sites and stuff, and we've got some good campgrounds around here.
I mean, I don't know much about camping. I've never, but I was surprised when I came here how many people are
Yeah.
so into it, the market for it. And um,
It's a cheap way to get away.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really
sure.
is.
Yeah,
And then, bring, whatever. And I haven't bought a camper yet, but I'm planning to soon.
yeah,
So I've been really for the last year and a half looking for what I wanted.
yeah. The common joke is, you got the camper, it's got the TV and the air conditioner and
Yeah, yeah.
king size bed,
Oh, I'm gonna have
shower and
TV too and
yeah,
Wi-Fi,
yeah.
all that stuff.
And you want to just go outside and sit by the fire for a couple hours. Yeah, that's fine.
No, it's good.
Yeah, and then they got the Winnebago company up front. Seems like it's still doing good. Every once in a while they have scares like layoffs and stuff like that.
Yeah, they just had one
Did they? Yeah, I
yesterday.
didn't hear about that.
And at the time of this broadcast, I don't know when people are going to see it, but
Depend if I don't have to edit it and I just press play, I could do it tomorrow. I mean, but
today is the 15th,
okay.
and it happened yesterday. They've got, I think I want to say it's the middle of June, and the unfortunate news, 200 people are getting laid off.
Oh yeah, that's
So
yeah, that's
that's
not
rough.
yeah.
That's rough and tough.
You know, hopefully they'll find jobs. I mean,
Yeah,
I do appreciate that. I think also about this town that it seems like there's a lot of jobs. I would say so. I don't know if that's act. I feel like there's a lot of jobs out here,
yeah,
especially just people looking for work. As long as you're willing to show up,
that's the key.
once you have a reputation, people kind of catch on to that. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
My big thing is that when I talk to young people all the time, I always tell them that you should really care about what you love to do.
yeah,
And that's what you should be going for.
yeah,
I don't think, let's face it, I think it's been instilled into our kids' head that I got to make money.
yeah,
Well, you'll make money, and it's a lot easier to do something you enjoy doing.
mhm,
And I've been lucky. I wanted to be in radio so bad when I was a kid. I had a dream when I was 11, 12 years old. When you're on the farm as a kid in the 70s,
yeah,
you had lots of time to daydream,
yeah,
and think about, when you're doing chores or going out and baling hay or out in the combine or whatever, you have a lot of daydreams.
yeah,
And that's what I was thinking about. I said, gosh, and I was listening to radio at the time. I said,
uh,
man, that sounds like a much more fun job and
yeah,
a lot of stuff. And I always wanted to, and um, I did it.
yeah, yeah,
And here I am, 45 years later, going to get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
yeah.
this Liberty
Congratulations. That's
weekend. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah,
looking forward to that. I didn't know that they only pick one DJ in the state,
Okay.
and I'm the lucky
You're
guy.
you're the guy.
I
Yeah.
guess so. So
Ah,
I'm
that's awesome.
very
Congratulations.
happy.
Good
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I'll get a nice award, my participation trophy
Well, you've been participating for long
for
enough,
a long
so
time.
yeah.
Eh? So I mean, Ned had no idea it was coming. It's very humbling, and but it
You
just
feel
feels.
you feel lucky?
I do feel
Yeah.
lucky because and what I feel lucky about was I knew what I wanted to do when I was a kid,
Yeah.
and to still do that.
Yeah.
And I have a very short resume.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I've done one thing all my life,
Yeah.
other than my side hustle of DJing,
Yeah.
weddings and school dances
Mm.
and the fact that I started in radio and when I did DJ dances and stuff, I started with records
Yeah.
and then went to cassettes and then went to
Yeah.
CDs and then sent, how much money I spent just updating the library,
Yeah. Yeah.
and now we're at a point where, I know that there's rookie DJs, I call it rookie DJs, but there's DJs out there that they get two Spotify accounts and go back and forth. Well,
Okay.
I never did that. I
Yeah.
actually bought all my music.
Okay.
Plus, I could speed it up a little bit if I wanted to.
What is the importance of buying music as opposed to just hearing
I
it when
think
you don't?
just the fact that they own it.
Okay.
There's some, there's still people out there
Yeah.
that love to, they're still making CDs yet,
Yeah.
and they appreciate the fact that this is mine. This
Yeah.
is, I own it.
I think people get jealous of celebrities, especially musicians. They got millions of dollars and all they did was sing one song. It's like, well, that one song talking about growing medicine, I mean, it's touching millions of people on a daily basis. If one person, if they each pay $4 for that, there's the millions of dollars that they got. That's just kind of rightly so. Like I'm not providing a tree service for millions of people.
Right.
It's only for a few people.
It's
So
all about your audience,
yeah.
what you're willing to pay for. But I mean, my big thing when all these platforms came out and stuff, I mean, because there are, let's face it, there's teenagers to people up in their 20s. When's the last time you bought any music?
Well, that was my dilemma being a Christian also. Um, when it first came out, like Napster,
Mhm.
uh,
Everybody was
I
stealing.
was I wasn't a Christian. I didn't know it was stealing, and
Yeah,
then they had to explain to
yeah,
me, this is stealing. This is our music. You need
yeah,
to pay for it. Nobody,
yeah,
before you have to go to the record store
yeah.
to buy the CD, and then you can hear the music. And um, so I wouldn't have the money to buy all these CDs. I'd borrow them from friends, and then I would
Right.
pick like a CD. So maybe I bought like 4 or 5 CDs, and then when I lose the CD, it's like, well, I can buy the CD again, or I can listen to it on Spotify.
Right.
I already bought it.
And there's millions of
Yeah,
artists that put their stuff on there.
yeah,
If you want to support your favorite artist, go to their concerts.
yeah.
That's
Okay,
why you hear about so many people are out. That's how they make money.
okay,
And that's why the prices are up there a little bit.
yeah,
And I get that. I mean, there's other reasons too, that I won't get into, but they, that's how they make their money.
yeah.
I mean, Taylor Swift still gets a check from Spotify, obviously,
Hmm.
but I think there's some truth to the fact that the groups and the artists that came out, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s were all making a ton of money because they were selling millions of records.
Mm,
Millions.
yeah,
Okay. And then when the 90s came, well, they weren't doing all that. And that's when things started to change,
yeah,
in the late 90s and stuff like that. And but that you're taken away from their number one, you know, way to pay for food was the buying their records.
yeah,
And now, Spotify cuts a check from all that stuff, and that's how they do it. They get a percentage.
yeah. And then there's artists too. I don't. You hear a lot about it on the news, especially afterwards, that they kind of get screwed out of the industry. They came up with this music and so bought it, and now don't have the rights to it anymore because they signed the contract right away.
Hmm.
And there's situations like I remember TLC, you familiar with the band
Yeah.
TLC? Um, they were live on TV, and it was the Grammys. They just won all these Grammys, and they were just like almost in tears because like we're broke, we're not getting paid anything because
Yeah.
we signed the contract and they're taking the
Yeah. Well, something can be said about the contractor. You
yeah
know, the record companies, they want everything
yeah
stuff. And there's stories about that with, I think I just saw one with Dan Rather on Access TV where he interviewed Brett Michaels and of Poison.
yeah.
And Brett, when they first started,
Doesn't Brett Michaels come to Clear Lake every once in a while?
well, he came when he came to Mason City a while back when we had Ragnarok come through.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I
It
thought.
was downtown,
Yeah,
had about 25,000 people
yeah,
there.
yeah,
And but I think that he said in that interview that he learned a lot about record companies and you sign your life, you just want all you want to do is have fun,
yeah,
make money,
yeah,
And I think that's why, I mean Gene Simmons even talks about this. He went a little far, I think, saying rock is dead or whatever. And what he was talking about was the fact that the artists that we had, I mean, the group that we had, we made money
yeah,
selling millions of
yeah,
records.
yeah,
And just like anybody for like how many decades. And then by the time the mid 90s hit, I think that's, you know, and I still question, there's some, I mean, aside from the Taylor Swifts out
yeah,
there,
yeah,
there's not many like her
yeah.
making a ton of billions of dollars.
It's almost like a charade kind of deal
Yeah, but
because I mean, you think that they had MTV Cribs. You ever watch that show?
yeah,
And finally, somebody, uh, I think it was Redman who came on, uh, and he was part of the band, not NWA, but Wu-Tang Clan. And Redman, he showed off his crib. It was an apartment, and he's like, "Here's my shoebox with $1 bills," and and it's still in like a ghetto neighborhood. But he was explaining that when they were gonna have him do the show, that they were going to rent out a house for him, and it was going to be decked out, and this was going to be the fridge is going to look like this, how big your pool is going to be, your
mm,
basketball court. And he got on the phone with his mom. He's like, "Hey, they're going to be on the show. It's going to empty your cribs. They're going to show them the house, and it's not going to be." What do you mean it's not your house? You don't live there. Why would you do that? So he took advice from his mom, to not do it that way, but to show it where he actually lives. And MTV was reluctant, like, let's just go to the house, let's do it up and everything. And then they go to his apartment and he's showing how he really lives, like we don't make millions of people dollars like people think that we do. And that actually ended up being the number one show for that program, was just being honest and being real. But they play it up so much about how much money these artists are making. Some of them do, but for the most part, a lot of them are in apartments and traveling around and still trying to figure out how they're gonna
on a budget.
on a budget. Yeah, and I think that's creates a culture because you get the kids who are like, that's what I want to do. And it's like, well, you can, but it's not as glamorous as you think it'd be, and it could be extremely dangerous. A lot of predators out there, or just anywhere also. But the idea that you can just write a song or be an artist or in a band and make millions of dollars.
And I think that was the pipe dream of a lot of
Yeah,
youngsters, for so many years, for decades. But, it's work.
yeah,
You've got to really work at about anything, and I mean, I'm not saying that the people in the 50s, 60s, 70s didn't work. Of course they did, but it's the fact that you had to write songs.
yeah,
That's a talent
mm,
to be able to write songs, and if you maybe you write songs but you're not in the spotlight, or the limelight, then you give it to artists that can maybe sing your song.
yeah.
So I mean that's what it's all about. Does Taylor Swift write all of her songs? Good question. I don't know.
Well, if she does, she's very talented because
Oh
there's
yeah,
some
you can
there's
write
some
and
really
sing.
good songs, really good lyrics.
Yeah,
I love them anyways. What's You were talking about being a Christian. Did you grow up as in a Christian household?
I did. I
Okay,
did. Went to church all the time, and I was always religious. I'm today probably more spiritual than I am religious. it's important to be told, of course.
Yeah.
But I've been on a nice journey for the last, well, I'm going to be celebrating 19 years of sobriety coming up
Okay.
on June 25th.
Yeah, I did forget.
And
I
yeah,
forgot that about you, that you do celebrate
yeah,
your sobriety. So
I,
congratulations on
I
that.
was an alcoholic and I just, did what I had to do.
Yeah.
I, I got help.
Hmm.
And I encourage anybody if they need some help with this. But I got help, and then I went to a really good treatment center, Hazelwood,
Okay.
which is up in Center City, Minnesota. They have satellite places all over, just like Mayo does.
Okay.
Our local hospital merchant. There's places all over, but I heard a lot about this, and you know, I decided, you know, maybe it's time for me to wave the white flag, and
Yeah.
instead of doing it my way,
Yeah.
I was very self-reliant where I've always said that if I get I got myself into this, I'll get myself
Yeah.
out. And I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So that's why I went there, and those 30 days just changed my life. And
Okay.
been sober ever since, well, June 25th of 2006 is when I went. So
How long did you contemplate sobriety before you made that decision?
I was actually towards the end of it in the last couple of years.
Okay.
I got, I was tired of drinking.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to quit though.
Okay.
And any addict that is watching or listening or
Hmm.
whatever, um, understands
Yeah.
that you sometimes can do your drug of choice for so long. Mine was alcohol. Um, you just, it got to a point where it ran my life
Yeah.
rather than me running it. We think our mind tells us that we can, quit it.
Yeah.
And that's baloney. I mean, I've never been able to. I at least, you know, I mean, I'm nobody special. I'm nothing. I'm no. I mean, I'm just as good as you, or just as bad as anybody else.
Yeah.
And stuff. But I just, I was looking for a way out, and I guess it took what I went through to
Did,
finally realize that.
did you have support around you?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Was that family or friends or
Yeah,
whatever?
uh, and I really try to, I don't know, preach is not the right word, but I want to get the message out that I have, I had support. As soon as I left the treatment center, I had two things. I went to AA. They always say 90 meetings in 90 days right away, and that's
Okay.
true. And I did that.
Okay.
And I went to church. Started going to church because
Yeah.
I did have a spiritual lifting when I was in treatment. The 12 steps, if anybody follows that, um, I really understood them. I had 7 counselors on
Hmm.
all different emotions
Yeah.
that I was going through because there's a ton of emotions that you go through.
Yeah.
And um, I did that for 2 years. And then I looked and I had a sponsor.
Yeah.
I got a sponsor like almost right away, and Hazelden kind of helped up with. They helped me to find somebody that was from the area
Yeah.
that also went through their system up there. Anyway, that sponsor did very well. I mean, we were constant contact,
Yeah.
and just he was always there to help, and that's what it takes. It takes some accountability
Yeah.
from someone that you trust,
So
and I
how does
did.
that work? Do you like you're out of the program and I can use a drink right now, and then that's when you're supposed to make the phone call to a sponsor,
Yeah, you make a phone call.
and if we don't, you're
Yeah,
probably gonna drink that night.
yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, well, fortunately for me, I was riding pretty high on the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
and just
Okay.
like because I changed.
Yeah.
I literally could not. For me, when I was in treatment, it was getting through the weekends.
Yeah.
I had to get through because that's when I drank.
Yeah.
It was on the weekend,
Okay.
and I, would just wanted to get so I was not drinking on the weekends.
Yeah.
Well, I went 4 weekends in a row without it, but it takes work. You have to, go through the steps and just really and call your sponsor and
Yeah.
talk to them about everything. And in the meantime, I was I was reading the Bible quite a bit, and I
Yeah.
was getting involved with not only, well, after AA, I went and started with my sponsor. We started Celebrate Recovery in town.
Oh, you guys started that here in
That
town.
was way
Okay.
back in
Yeah.
2008, nine, something like that.
Yeah, I went to a
Did that
few.
for about 15 years.
Yeah, I went to a few of those. I talked about it in the podcast. You guys haven't seen it yet. It's the one with my brother because he's suffering from
Mhm.
alcohol abuse right now, and we see a lot of it growing up on the reservation. But with my addiction, it was marijuana. I was smoking weed all the time, and I just couldn't stop. And it was, I wanted to. So, if you know anything about buying drugs, you get cheaper prices in bulk. So I would go to the guy selling weed every day. I'd spend $50, and he would get mad at me because he have to answer his door every day. So he'd be like, "Hey, if you would just buy this much, $400, you would save a ton of money." But I didn't want to buy that much because I wanted this to be my last time. So I was like, since it's my last time, I might as well go out and bang, smoke it all up, and then be content. And the next day, it's like, really, I think,
See, that's what your addictive mind
yeah, yeah,
is thinking.
absolutely.
That's what takes
So,
over.
so the same concept, because I was a Christian. I smoked weed before I became a Christian, and then when I became a Christian, I still smoked weed. Being a new Christian, and kind of the way I did it on my own,
Mm.
I didn't have a strong background around me, so it was just kind of me formulating it on my own, reading the Bible. And so I had justified it that it was a plant of the earth, it wasn't a chemical that somebody produced or anything like that.
Mm.
So I didn't have any problems with using it, but then I could see how much it was corrupting my ability to uh, grow in the faith and be a Christian and be responsible. I was sober for a little bit, and then that didn't work, and then but then the last time when I was here at Nyack, I was smoking weed. I was still in that same pattern. It's like this is the last time, and then I would go and buy some more the next day. This is the last time. So I was still in that pattern. And this it wasn't $50 a day. This time it was $20 a day. But I was just crying out to God. And this is the only time I will say that God spoke to me. You hear people say God spoke to you, and it's like maybe, maybe not, but I'll say this the only time, and it's um I was asking God to take the weed away from me. That's the big thing. Like, God, you take it away from me. I don't want to do it on my own. You take it away from me so that way, and it just kind of makes it somebody else's responsibility, makes it God's responsibility. I guess He didn't take it away from me because I'm still using. Um, so when I was doing that, I was crying out to God saying, you're not taking it away from me. What's going on? And so He answered me not in an audible voice or anything. It was just something that was in my heart and in my mind. But I feel like it was God's presence that created that emotion in my heart and in my mind. He answered and said, "You have to make a choice right now. You're going to choose to serve me, or you're going to choose to serve marijuana. And that's your choice. Before you make that choice, know this, that I love you. Now make your choice." And,
Amen.
yeah, and
Way to
then
go.
I, chose to follow God. And when I did that, I felt like he gave me instructions on how to do that because I went to Celebrate Recovery a little bit, but anyways, the tool that I used a lot, and I would recommend this to anybody who's listening, talking about reading the Bible, I would pick a verse from the Bible, and it wasn't a famous verse. It was just open the Bible, find a verse. If you want to use two or three, but it was something that I could memorize. So anytime throughout the day, I was like, I could smoke some weed right now. I would block that and I would replace it with that Bible memory verse. So first, it takes like 10, 15 minutes to remember the verse. So you have it hammered in your head.
Hmm.
And then if you do forget it, you have it written down. It's in your pocket. Like, what's that last word? Oh, so that's what I did. I did that for about 3 months. Maybe it probably didn't take that long, but I probably had maybe 20 or 30 Bible. I would learn a new verse every day,
Sure.
and then I would try to remember the ones that I had already learned. And that was the last time I smoked weed. But even still today, I'm thinking, "Ah, I could smoke some weed right now." But I remember, I think God's still holding me to that, what are you gonna serve?
You
So,
should, if
yeah,
I can offer some other help.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
recite the Serenity Prayer
I,
every day.
yeah, the Serenity Prayer. I was gonna mention that earlier.
And that's the key, really, to, I think for anybody that's struggling with anything, you have to want to change.
Yeah,
You have to get that desire to
yeah,
change. Otherwise, you'll never do it. I mean, people all the time, and I've had sponsees that I've you know talked with and went over things with it, did the 12 steps of work and all that stuff, and it doesn't do any good if they don't want to change.
no, no,
I mean, it doesn't do
yeah,
anything. So that's the key is you have to want to change. And I know it's a jump,
yeah,
but you got to do that. And then there's also a lot in this world that we have to accept, and that's hard to do.
yeah,
I mean, anybody on Facebook can tell, that there's a lot of people that can't accept a lot of stuff, and
yeah,
they got to be very vocal about it and stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and I'm no stranger to that sometimes
yeah.
too,
Different
but
personalities out
yeah,
there. Yeah,
I just give it up to God
yeah,
and let it go,
yeah,
and you got to change what you can, accept what you have to, and kind of go from there. But yeah, no, I feel great. Like I said, it's been 19 years. I I do once in a while go to. I'm always there to sponsor anybody that wants to
uh-huh,
talk about anything. Um, and I'll always do that.
yeah,
I always do that. I'm not so much in Celebrate Recovery like I used to be. COVID shut us down on the one that I was
yeah,
doing,
yeah,
and but they still have it in town. They have it in Clear Lake. They have it in Mason City. They
mhm,
have it in Charles City.
yeah,
Um, and it's a great way to. What I loved about Celebrate Recovery is, I go back to when I first got out of treatment. The first thing I said,
yeah,
"Oh my gosh, everybody needs to go." I
yeah,
mean, forget about addictions or whatever.
yeah,
Everybody just needs to go because for the first time,
mhm,
I looked in a mirror,
yeah,
took my mask off, and I was honest
yeah,
with myself. And that's what the key part was. And Celebrate Recovery, why I think that's such a great thing is because it deals with anger,
yeah,
it deals with whatever your issues
yeah,
are deep down because everybody has issues. Okay, if
yeah,
you don't think you do,
right,
you got issues.
yeah, yeah,
But the whole idea is to find out what is causing those issues.
yeah,
Because I'll guarantee you, for anybody that lives with an addict or an alcoholic, it's not about the alcohol and the drugs. It's about the deep issue that's going on.
yeah,
What, why do they have to comfort themselves? You know,
yeah,
and there's a list of things that could be wrong, and it could go back to when, I found out that a lot of stuff, and this is very common for a lot of people, it's all based on your child.
absolutely. I think I made a little clip about this over the weekend. It was a couple of weekends ago about the power of forgiveness. You don't have to be religious to know that forgiveness goes a long way just to
Mhm.
be able to,
It's a good start.
yeah, just to forgive whatever it was that went on to allow you to be able to move on
Mhm.
and not use that as a crutch to keep holding you
Even
down more.
forgiving yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that was a big thing.
yeah,
And yeah, it's tough making those calls to the people that you harmed and
yeah,
you wanted to ask for forgiveness, and how great it is when they actually say, I forgave you a long time ago.
yeah,
Thanks for the call, or
yeah.
thanks for and that still to this day is something that I still might have someone that I run into
Okay.
that have a that. And I never understood because there's people that will love you and hate you, I mean, I never understood the hate,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of people out there that could care less about me and my show and could care less what I have to say or whatever. And that's fine. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how, but I don't know if they've really taken the time to get to know me,
Right.
you know. and that's happened quite a, it's like I've had that happen actually quite a few times where somebody come up and say, I never knew this about you, and
Yeah.
I always thought you were this, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
And I said, well, maybe I was sort of like that. I
Right.
don't know, but I am a human being, just like
Yeah.
everybody deserves some respect.
That's what I really want to get out of this podcast is allowing people to feel free with being themselves.
Hmm.
Um, you don't want to say things that are going to upset a lot of people because they're going to get this opinion of you
Yeah.
and now they're going to hit you. And it's
Yeah.
like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
You don't even know me. But I do think it's so important for people to understand, allow people to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You don't have to hate them because they said something and you don't know them. You didn't get a chance to talk to them about it. And, it's like,
Well, even in the Bible, they say, "Have you walked in their shoes?"
yeah,
Have you walked a mile in their
yeah,
shoes? You know, that is key.
mhm,
Did you ever stop and think? You know, see, perception is everything.
yeah,
Everything is, no matter what we see, no matter what we hear,
yeah,
everybody has perception.
mhm,
And I think the key to perception is to wait your reaction out
yeah,
if you can.
yeah,
It's hard to do
right,
because everybody has a reaction, everybody has an opinion,
yeah,
right? But can you delay it for a while and then maybe either say nothing or maybe ask another question?
yeah,
Because you haven't walked in their shoes. You have no idea what they're going through.
yeah,
All you do is have an opinion of that.
yeah. Decide on uh, uh, the part of niceness, which is what's the nicest way to react, given your feelings. If you have rough feelings about it, you're allowed to have your own feelings, but can you still react in a nice way or in a
Yeah.
nicer way than just blatantly that person's the scum of the earth, don't ever talk to them, they're snake in the grass, and it's like, I don't think they're that bad. They just might have, made a mistake, or they
Mhm.
just, they don't have the same practices or morals in that situation. We all have faulty morals. We all
Yeah.
make mistakes.
We're 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 just like everybody. We're all on the same earth.
Right.
Why don't we just all just try to get along and
Yeah.
and I'm no better than you and you're no better than me type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really you come together like that and just start an even keel.
Yeah.
And I definitely have learned a lot to be humble,
Yeah.
and it's a good place to be. Just like that, I mean, just saying thank you, like thank you for this podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Being humble goes a
it's
long, a long ways just to be able to. I think it's powerful. I think when you're humble, you find, us being Christians, that God puts us in a place of a higher place,
Mhm.
you know, emotionally, and just being able to accept that. It doesn't have to be money, it doesn't have to be health or anything, just emotionally, just knowing that He has a plan after this
Mhm.
body turns to dirt, which it will, for us to be with Him and to see His glory and to be in that presence.
Mhm.
But when you fight that humility and you want to take pride into your life and I deserve this, you can't treat me like that way.
No,
It's
pride takes over.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, and
pride is probably the one of the it's one of the deadliest sins, and it probably is the one. You can't rank them, okay? But the Bible even talks about one of the worst ones is pride,
right.
and saying that you deserve this. I think
You know,
the whole issue of entitlement is, out of this world. Like nobody's entitled to
yeah,
anything,
yeah.
really.
What the Bible verse is, after, I don't know how it words exactly, but something like, with pride comes destruction. Before destruction, pride is right there in front of it. So whenever you have a proud heart or pride, it, and a ill will.
It's good to be proud of your kid for excelling in school or in athletics and
Yeah,
stuff like that. That's not the kind of pride we're talking about.
I
It's a
think it is in a little bit though.
Well, it is. I mean, but you got to remember that you have to. It's just something you got to be careful with. And
Yeah,
like I said, I think the pride of I'm entitled.
right.
That's the problem. That's
Yeah,
the sin
yeah,
is being entitled like that.
yeah,
And but I think you can be proud of something that you might have accomplished or whatever, but it's just what the level are you on?
Yeah.
On that kind of pride.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you before we stop here about your name. How did you get your name?
Rio?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one. People always ask that because my real name is Marlon.
Okay.
And I, when I
That's a good
was,
radio name too, Marlin.
not really.
Well, he's a wizard. And you're a radio wizard.
Believe me, my parents, when they found out I was changing my name to Harry O, they had lots of questions. Like, why?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it was 1974. I was 11 years old,
Yeah.
and this show on ABC was called Harry O.
Okay.
He was a detective and a journalist at the same time,
Yeah.
and modern day Kojak type thing or whatever. If you guys all remember that, but if you Google Harry O, you'll get David Jansen.
Okay.
David Jansen was you have to go way back. I don't know your viewers. I don't know how old your viewers or listeners are, but when you got to go back to when The Fugitive first came out.
Yeah.
A lot of people remember The Fugitive with Harrison Ford out of the 80s. Well, we're talking the original. That was a reboot
Okay.
for about 20 years. And the original was like late 60s.
Yeah.
I never saw The Fugitive movie until I was an adult.
Yeah.
But David Jansen was the fugitive in there, and that's what you'll see on the first page. I'm on the second page.
Okay. Oh, second.
Anyway, I just said, what a cool name.
Yeah.
That's going to be my radio name.
Okay.
Whether people, like me or hate me, it didn't make any difference. You'll know who Harry O is,
Yeah.
and there's not that many around, I guess. And then I added the Neil because one of my radio gigs, I can't remember which one it was, in the very beginning said, well, you got to have a last name.
Yeah.
I go, why? Can I just be O?
Yeah. So O'Neill, isn't that supposed to be
So
like
I
Irish?
added, well, I was
Yeah.
thinking of Shaquille O'Neal at
Oh,
the time, and I just added O'Neal.
yeah.
I mean, I added Neil to the
Yeah.
O. I'm not Irish. I'm pretty German.
Okay.
In
Very good. Yeah. Yeah.
fact, my mom had a little Cherokee Indian in her.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing even close to Irish, but that's how I got the name.
Okay. Cool.
Hope everybody stayed to the end to
Yeah.
figure that out.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Have this gift in honor of your name.
Oh, right.
I just picked this up from Hobby Lobby,
Oh,
so
look at
it's not a
that.
big deal. Just happened to match everything. There's
It looks like me.
yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah. You bet.
thank you. That's actually probably the number one question I get.
Yeah. Well,
So that's not your real name. So what is, I usually get, what's your real name or how did you come up with Ario?
my name is Desi, and people ask me where does that come from. So because of that, I'm always interested. Where does the name come from? But my name is half of my dad's name. My dad's name, because he's from Mexico, he has an old Mexican name that they don't even use that word anymore, Desiderio. And I think he never told me this, but I think he got picked on or something because it's supposed to be something like beautiful or something.
Oh,
So when my mom wanted me to have his name, he was like, "No, you're not gonna." He's not. He didn't like it. And also, people called him Yayo, which is cocaine
oh,
in Spanish. And I think because of
wow.
the second part of it, desiderio, when you kind of slur it, you can
Sure.
hear that Yayo part of it. So he got called cocaine was his nickname. People, where's cocaine at? Where's cocaine? And they're
Yeah,
talking about my dad. And so for that reason, I think he also didn't want me to have that name.
sure.
So they agreed on me having just the first part of his name, Desi,
Okay.
D-E-C-I.
And it's DECI.
Yep, D-E-C-I.
Yeah.
I,
So I was thinking, like, this is bad. I'm gonna
yeah, yeah,
lose myself. Desi
I
Arnaz
get that a lot. Yep,
that was with an S though.
yep,
That DESI.
yep. And I never correct anybody. Desi, Jesse, Desi. I always say that you got it.
Desi.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it much.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Have fun.
All right. Hopefully, we're recording, huh?